Welcome to Business Insight Fredericton. I'm Krista Ross, CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce, and I'm your host. In today's episode, we will be talking to heritage businesses, businesses that have been in business for many years in Fredericton. Some of these segments were filmed pre-COVID. In our first segment, we'll be talking to the folks at A.R. Menzies. They have been in business in Fredericton for 100 years.
I am cutting and trimming these walls of this socket to shape the way I want.
Al, tell me about your business.
Well, we're a small family business. We've been around this. I guess our claim to fame is we've just reached our 100-year milestone of being in operation. My grandfather started it in 1920, and my father and uncle carried on in 1943 when he passed away. And I came on board in 1971 and bought the company actually from my father in 1989. That's the gist of it. We've all been prosthetists. I guess that's what carried it on for the three generations.
So tell me what products you have here at A.R. Menzies & Sons Limited.
Our reason for being right now is to provide prosthetic devices and orthotic devices to amputees and to people with mobility impairments. That's what we started with, and that's what we do now. At one time, we were into 6 different divisions, and we had everything from home health care divisions to ostomy supplies, mastectomy supplies, compression stockings, pedorthics, which is a study of foot orthotics. Just this past few months, sold off the pedorthics division that we had to a long-term employee. And so we're basically back to where we started, prosthetics and orthotics. This is a carbon fiber foot, very commonly used now today in most legs. There's an art to it, there's an engineering aspect to it, there's a home health care aspect to it.
Fredericton is known as being the startup capital of Canada. And I think a lot of the startup businesses think they've cornered the market on innovation, but your grandfather invented the first moving hip. Tell me about that.
He lost his leg in a woods accident and was rushed to hospital in Newcastle. They didn't feel they could do anything for him, so they put him on a train to Moncton. They, in Moncton, said, oh gosh, if we do it here, our technology is, we're not really up the skills. We'd probably have to amputate a portion of his leg, but if we get into Boston, Boston should be able to save it. And by the time we got to Boston, gangrene had set in. There weren't any antibiotics in that era. So they were lucky to save his life by taking his leg off through the hip. And so that started his relationship with Boston. And he is attributed, just been reinforced today by finding a news article on it actually it was in his obituary in the 40s, that he was the first one in the world to develop a functioning hip joint. So when he went back down to Boston with his homemade leg, they were very intrigued by it and evolved from that. So then they ended up making and mass producing these hip joints, and he learned some of his trade there, came back, learned the rest of it in Toronto, and then the rest is history. 1920 came to Fredericton. A lot of veterans after the First World War, and so we had lots of work.
It seems to me that this business would be about serving people, and it would make you feel really great when you see someone come in with an amputation and leave with a prosthetic. How does that make you feel?
I think that's one of the biggest things that drew me to this, other than the fact that I grew up with it. At the end of the day, when you fit the leg and they literally walk out and they can hopefully achieve as normal a life as they once had.
So you've been around for 100 years. That's a huge milestone. Tell me about that.
It's a passion, and I think that my grandfather certainly portrayed that to my father and my uncle, and unfortunately it was thrust upon them fairly quickly. I mean, my grandfather died very suddenly. My older uncle was actually in the forces, was in the services, and had to come back. My dad was in grade 10, had to take him out of school. But they'd both grown up. I mean, literally, we had patients in our home, the family home, have a slight forward tilt to them to start what we call a bench alignment.
So talking to a business that's 100 years old, sometimes the new businesses think that they've got the market cornered on innovation. But it seems to me that you've began with innovation.
Well, we did, and I mean, if my grandfather were alive today, I'm sure he would just be shaking his head wondering how this technology that's evolved, especially over the last 30 years or so, the Bluetooth technology that we see nowadays, the new materials, the carbon fibers, the titaniums, the graphites, the lightweight, strong, reactive, energy efficient systems that are out there now. We were advertising our 100th anniversary party we had here a few weeks ago.
Is there really any consideration in this business for competition?
Not really. The problem with this business is that there is a certain amount of, it's based on population. I mean, we provide the services enough for the population as it is.
So you're in the third generation of this business. Tell me about the fourth generation.
Well, unfortunately, it's going to end with me. My daughter, who's with me, has been a tremendous help. She's in the admin side of the company. But in order for this business to run, you have to be an owner-operator. So it'll end with me. Matter of fact, the company is for sale. It's no secret. We've been in succession planning for a few years now. I have to keep emotion out of it, but I want, my goal is, to have somebody hopefully that'll take over and treat it the same way that I did, and because I want it to continue on. Our patients have been coming to us for so long.
We know that less than 13% of businesses succeed to the third generation. To what do you attribute this business's success and longevity?
I think it's just through osmosis. I grew up, from the early days of toddler. My mom would say, "Go get your father for supper. He's late again," and I'd have to run over the top and pull him back over to the house. And so when I was 10 or 12 years old, I was out here sweeping floors, emptying garbage cans, lighting the fire in the fire pit.
What are the challenges that your business would face on a day-to-day basis?
Some people come in, they don't have any insurance. So if they can self-raise money, that's one way they do it. Sometimes they can get some help. War-Amps has been a huge, War-Amps we've worked with very closely for many, many years. If you don't qualify for social development, or if you don't have private insurance, you're sometimes out of luck. That's one of the other issues we're having with insurance companies. A lot of them will not have an assignment of benefits, we call it. They won't allow us to bill them direct when the process is completed. Some of these older people just don't have that.
And when you talk about a challenge in your business, I guess having a big heart and wanting to support your clients and help them and do your best to support them. If the system is not there to do that, that must be a really big challenge.
It is, and there are some times when we take a little hit here and there because we just feel that if we can give them this, it's worth it. One of the other challenges that we have on a day-to-day basis is now with the overcrowding in hospitals, which really affects us because every patient that gets a leg, if they're new, the next step is the therapy.
I'm interested to know what kind of good advice you've been given as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Who's given you good advice, and what was that advice?
I don't know if you could call it advice. I guess it's this mantra that my dad, he didn't pressure, he wasn't a preacher, but he was certainly a very, a moral man, and I was so fortunate. We actually we shared the same office for 45 years. Most of what I learned from him, and he learned it from his father. There were nights when he and I were in the early years, when I was here in the 70s and early 80s, we would actually literally 2 or 3 different times we'd pass in the night. He'd be going home at 3 a.m., I'd be going in. One time back before I started working here, he worked 3 straight days and then fell over right in his very room. So he instilled certainly a hard work ethic in me.
I know your business has won some awards. Tell me about that.
We won the Small Business Award from the Chamber of Commerce back in the late 90s. My father was recognized as a fellow of the Canadian Board of Certification, which is the highest honor you can get. He was also a life member. We both have gotten community awards. Dad's fill a book. Yeah, I think I'm most proud of my Paul Harris Fellowship Award.
What would you say are your goals over the next, let's say, 3 years?
To sell it. I got a couple of good years left of me, I think, but we're really anxious to get going and have somebody hopefully take over that will manage it in a style, as I mentioned, that I can be happy with.
This segment features a third-generation business, Gardner Realty and Gardner Properties. We'll be talking to Donna Gardner Thompson, Lincoln Thompson, and their son, Ben.
We're quite well known for our real estate side of the business, and that was my father's first love when they were in Oromocto. He went into the real estate business and then very quickly decided he liked buying property and looked at building houses with some people out in Oromocto and getting that started. And then we quickly moved into Fredericton, and he expanded his business throughout the Maritimes.
So this year, Gardner's celebrating 50 years. Tell us a bit about that.
I started in 1970, and 50 years later, here we are. Donna and I joined in 1988, so we're almost 33 years into the business. And over all those years, we've seen many changes and growth, and it's been lots of fun. There's been lots of challenges, but at the same time, here we are, a business that served the Fredericton Oromocto area way back in 1970, and we're still doing it.
So what is both of your background? How did you get into the business?
Well, my father, Don Gardner, and my mother, Alice Gardner, both founded the business. I think my dad stepped out front early on, which was the custom at the time, and it became Dad was more into the properties and development, and Mom was more into management. So I learned everything.
Well, my background was a St. John boy. I grew up, went to UMB, did my MBA at Dal, and I was working for Nortown, Ontario, and we were home one year at Christmas, and Donna's father said, listen, I need some help in the business. Would you think about coming back? And at that point in time, it was about quality of life.
So how many employees do you actually have?
We're 41 right now.
And how many would there have been back when you came to the company in 1988?
In 88, there was about 10.
Most people are probably more familiar with the Gardner Realty side of the business.
Definitely.
Tell me a little bit about the Gardner property side of the business.
When we came on board, our company, we had two buildings in the portfolio. And as Donna said earlier, her father liked to buy land, so he bought land in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI. With that asset base, over the years, we've built strip malls and
Mini
warehouses, and mini homes, and apartment buildings. We've developed subdivisions, so we've done that in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI.
So tell me who you would consider to be your main clientele.
On the realty side, we are heavily into the forces and other government employees. We've always been big on that end, and as well as we're doing hobby farms and all sorts of properties.
The property side, we serve all different clientele, you know, dentists and surgeons and small businesses.
This is Curtis Knapp calling on behalf of Gardner Realty.
What do you find is the best way to get your message out to your clients?
On the realty side, really, it's over the years, it's proven to us that it's word of mouth, and by treating your clients with the skills, the knowledge, the professionalism that they expect.
Royal LePage and realtors are always try a number of things to differentiate themselves with their listings. Part of that being, especially now during the COVID time, where almost everything's being done virtually, is things like drone footage to get an idea of the neighborhood, and also the use of 3D home viewing, where you can actually walk around a house and look at different areas of the house.
As a long-established business, as a heritage business, what do you attribute the longevity of this business to?
A lot of work and a lot of hours and 7 days a week. Maybe if there was an 8th day, my dad used to say, if there was an 8th day, it would be perfect, because then you could get everything done in a week.
Besides the hard work, it's maintaining high morals and ethics and giving back to the community. Donna's father, he was #1 for giving back to the community, and those things come back to it.
And it'll be interesting to see, you know, how the third generation deals with it. Our daughter Katrina is a trainer at Royal LePage Atlantic in Halifax, and Ben Gardner Thompson just decided to join us here.
So you're the third generation. Statistics tell us that only about 13% of third generation family businesses succeed. What do you think about that?
I'm pretty confident we can continue the success and work off the base my grandfather started.
You've been in business for a number of years, but what's the advice that you think is the best advice you've been given in your career?
I would say just surrounding yourself with the right people.
Do a business plan and do a well thought out business plan. You know, I've seen businesses come in and they think they've got a great idea, and yes, they can bring it to market, but are they capitalized? Do they know the channels that it has to go in? Do they know how to promote it? You know, you've got to have a plan, and it has to be well thought out.
And you need to get advice, and you have to be humble enough and open enough to ask others for that advice.
Yeah, my father always taught me, when you shake somebody's hand and promise to do something, do it. And never back away from that.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you've faced as a business owner or as an entrepreneur?
COVID. Would you say COVID?
Well, gosh, COVID has certainly been a challenge, but we've risen to the occasion.
In your industry, are there unique regulatory issues and things like that that you would face that other businesses wouldn't face?
In terms of representing both sides of the transaction. So you're representing buyers and sellers. There's significant regulatory procedures and practices that we have to follow.
To protect the public.
So that's part from government, part from the Canadian Real Estate Association that we have to follow.
You have a signature event called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. Tell me a little bit about that.
We ended up finding the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes trademark in the States. One of our sales staff discovered it. As things went along, we ended up buying and have in stock 110 pairs of red high heel shoes from size 6 to 14 men's, if you can imagine, and have adopted it. We started in 2014, and every year we've raised more money and have had more walkers.
The idea for Royal LePage, when they decided to make they used to support a lot of small things, but decided that housing and women and children were very important, and sort of getting towards the end of domestic abuse.
What are your goals for the next 12 months, the next 3 years, the next 5 years? What are your plans?
1 year is to get through COVID. Right?
That might be 2 or
Yeah.
3 years, but
I mean, I really feel we've risen to the occasion.
and we've adapted.
But there's challenges every day with COVID. 3 years is to continue to replenish our realty side. There's attrition every year with our realtors, and you have to grow. And we've gone on the property side. We've got a couple of construction projects on the drawing board.
Welcome back to Business Insight Fredericton. I'm Krista Ross, your host. In this segment, we'll be speaking to Heather Wilson, President and CEO of Wilson Insurance. Heather will be speaking to us about a business that her grandfather started 90 years ago, and she'll be talking about the changes that have been made since she's been at the helm.
We are one of the largest independent brokers in the Maritimes, so that means that we don't have insurance companies or other folks invested in us. And that allows us to offer independent advice and choice to our clients. So that's the greatest strength of all for our clients. We were established in 1930, and we're a third-generation family business. The products that we offer are business insurance, construction and surety. We have home, car, and leisure products for personal insurance products. We also have employee benefits, life insurance, human resource consulting, risk management consulting.
So not only are you in the insurance business, you've mentioned that you're in the HR consulting business. Tell me about that.
So I developed skills in HR that I used to build my team, and now the skills that I've developed through Colby Corp and various other organizations, I help clients use as well.
Tell me a bit about the history of the business. It started in the Depression 90 years ago. Tell me about a bit of the history and the progression of the company.
So Wilson Insurance is a family business, so started by Headley in 1930. His son joined the business after graduating from, actually did an engineering degree, and then after his engineering degree, he did his MBA at Western University, and then took over the business after his degree. That would have been in the late 60s, early 70s. So I joined the business in 1998 after doing a commerce degree and working in various businesses within the community. About 6 years working my way up through the business, I entered into a management role. And I distinctly remember asking my father, "Hey, Dad, when are you going to teach me how to run the business?" And his answer to me was, I already have. You already know.
When the business started, how many employees were there, and what has it grown to today?
There were two. There was my grandfather and his assistant. Today, 90 years later, we have 49 employees in 3 locations, all in New Brunswick.
Who would be the main clientele for your business?
We service a number of different types of clients in a number of different industries. We service residential clients or individuals, and we service business owners looking to protect their business. We have clients in the public sector, we have clients in healthcare, we have a very broad range of clients.
Is cyber insurance something that your firm offers?
Absolutely. So cyber insurance has been around for a number of years. You're hearing a lot about it in light of the pandemic, because there is an increased threat with a lot of more folks working from home.
Do you give a lot of thought to your competitors, or do you simply focus on your own?
We don't allow our competitors to dictate what we do. We feel competition in the industry is important. It's of value to us, and it's of value to our clients. And we also keep in mind emerging trends and up-and-coming coverages that clients may need.
Tell me about innovation in your business and in this industry.
What we're seeing mostly for innovation now in our industry is is all in and around the digital space and allowing clients to self-serve a little more. We've recently introduced our My Wilson app, which allows our clients to access their liability cards, their insurance policies, even reach out to their account managers and ask questions.
What made you decide you wanted to join the family business?
I can recall my grandfather suggesting to me every now and then, don't you think you might be interested in running the family business one day? So that little seed was planted quite a while back in my youth. What I really knew for sure is I'm all about helping people, and the protecting people just was a natural fit for that. I decided to have a go at it.
So the business has been around for 90 years. What do you attribute the longevity and that long-term success of the business? What do you attribute that to?
I would have to say the success of our business has been around relationships. So, and tied with that, our key core value of integrity.
What have you found as a business owner, as an entrepreneur? What do you find challenging?
My biggest challenge is finding the right balance between personal life and business life. And I'm not looking for, that perfect balance, or they used to say the work-life balance. It's just not achievable. But being able to move that dial so that I can be fully engaged in work and with the family members that depend on me the most, and have a balance.
This spring, when COVID-19 sort of changed our world and changed our business practices and so on, how did that impact your business and how you operate?
We're very fortunate to say that although we had to close our doors to clients for a period of time, we did not go a day not in business. And that was actually very beneficial to us, because we did have prospects that called us and said, thank you for answering. I just need to talk to someone. I need insurance.
There's a statistic that says only about 13% of businesses succeed and make it to the third generation. What do you make of that?
Being successful in business is all about having grit and having the ability to do the hard work and make the difficult choices and put the time in that's needed to be successful.
How do you feel about the economy and the business climate here in New Brunswick at this time?
I'm confident that our business will continue to grow through these challenging times.
And you've had a few jobs before Wilson, but specifically with Wilson Insurance, have you had a mentor?
We're a family business, so certainly I've had a mentor in my father. I've also had a mentor in my mother, because my mom has more of the soft skills part of the business, whereas my late father was very much the structure, the finance, the insurance skill.
What types of things is Wilson doing in these times to be involved in the community?
We are still sponsoring clients and community organizations where we can, with time or with treasure.
What are your goals in the business in the next 12 months or perhaps 3 or 5 years?
Last year we redesigned our website, we redesigned our logo. So our biggest thing this year is client enrollments in our My Wilson app. So to find out what our plans are for the next 5 years, we'll have to have a follow-up interview.
We're always looking for great companies with a unique story to feature on the show. If you have suggestions, please get in touch with us.